Let's go pick him up. Oh, I hate this client so much. Yeah, I'll try this. This client's so stupid. He's so stupid. Yeah, he's so stupid. I don't know why. He plays like he's. I don't know. Oh, I don't show target memory. No, you don't, bitch. No, you don't. Mike, no, you don't. Stop lying. Oh. Lies to his companion all the time, too.
As to President Biden.
Yeah.
My fellow Americans, I'm speaking tonight from behind the resolute desk in the Oval Office. In this sacred space, surrounded by portraits of extraordinary American presidents. Thomas Jefferson wrote the immortal words that guide this nation. George Washington showed us presidents are not kings. Abraham Lincoln implored us to reject malice. Franklin Roosevelt inspired us to reject fear. I revere this office, but I love my country more. It's been the honor of my life to serve as your president. But in the defense of democracy, which is at stake, I think it's more important than any title. I draw strength and I find joy in working for the American people. But this sacred task of perfecting our union, it's not about me. It's about you, your families, your futures. It's about we, the people. We can never forget that. And I never have. I've made it clear that I believe America is at an inflection point. One of those rare moments in history when the decisions we make now will determine our fate of our nation and the world for decades to come. America should have to choose between moving forward or backward, between hope and hate, between unity and division. We have to decide, do we still believe in honesty, decency, respect, freedom, justice, and democracy? In this moment, we can see those we disagree with not as enemies, but as fellow Americans. Can we do that? Does character and public life still matter? I believe I know the answer to these questions because I know you, the American people. And I know this. We are a great nation because we are good people. When you elect me to this office, I promise to always level with you, to tell you the truth. And the truth, the sacred cause of this country is larger than any one of us. And those of us who cherish that cause, cherish it so much, the cause of American democracy itself, must unite to protect it. You know, in recent weeks, it's become clear to me that I need to unite my party in this critical endeavor. I believe my record as president, my leadership in the world, my vision for America's future, all merited a second term. But nothing can come in the way of saving our democracy. That includes personal ambition. So I've decided the best way forward is to pass the torch to a new generation. That's the best way to unite our nation. You know, there is a time and a place for long years of experience in public life. There's also a time and a place for new voices, fresh voices, yes, younger voices. And that time and place is now. For the next 6 months, I'll be focused on doing my job as president. That means I'll continue to protect hard-working families, grow our economy. I'll keep defending our personal freedoms and our civil rights, from the right to vote to the right to choose. I'll keep calling out hate and extremism. Make it clear there is no place in America for violence, or any violence at all, period. I'm going to keep speaking out to protect our kids from gun violence. Our planet from climate crisis is an existential threat. And I will keep keep fighting for my cancer moonshot so we can end cancer as we know it, because we can do it. I'm going to call for Supreme Court reform because this is critical to our democracy, Supreme Court reform. You know, I will keep working to ensure America remains strong, secure, and the leader of the free world. I'm the first president in this century to report to the American people that the United States is not at war anywhere in the world. We'll keep rallying a coalition of proud nations to stop Putin from taking over Ukraine and doing more damage. We'll keep NATO stronger, and I'll make it more powerful and more united than any time in all of our history. I'll keep doing the same for our allies in the Pacific. The conventional wisdom was in China. It would inevitably surpass the United States. That's not the case anymore. And I'm going to keep working to end the war in Gaza, bring home all the hostages, and bring peace and security to the Middle East and end this war. We're also working around the clock to bring home Americans being unjustly detained all around the world. You know, we've come so far since my inauguration. On that day, I told you, as I stood in a winter of peril and a winter of possibilities. Peril and possibilities. We were in the grip of the worst pandemic in the century. The worst economic crisis since the Great Depression. The worst attack on our democracy since the Civil War. We came together as Americans. We got through it. We emerged stronger, more prosperous, and more secure. Today we have the strongest economy in the world, creating nearly 16 million new jobs, a record. Wages are up. Inflation continues to come down. The racial wealth gap is the lowest it's been in 20 years. We're literally rebuilding our entire nation, urban, suburban, rural, and tribal communities. Manufacturing has come back to America. We're leading the world again in chips and science and innovation. We finally beat all these years. Drugs for seniors. I'm going to keep fighting to make sure we lower the cost for everyone, not just seniors. More people have health care today in America than ever before. And I signed one of the most significant laws helping millions of veterans and their families who are exposed to toxic materials. You know, the most significant climate law ever in the history of the world. The first major gun safety law in 30 years. And today, the violent crime rate is at a 50-year low. We're also securing our border. Border crossings are lower today than when the previous administration left office. I've kept my commitment to appoint the first black woman to the Supreme Court of the United States of America. I also kept my commitment to have an administration that looks like America and be a president for all Americans. That's what I've done. I ran for president 4 years ago because I believed and still do that the soul of America was at stake. The very nature of who we are was at stake. And that's still the case. America's an idea. An idea stronger than any army, bigger than any ocean, more powerful than any dictator or tyrant. It's the most powerful idea in the history of the world. That idea is that we hold these truths to be self-evident. We're all created equal. Endowed by our Creator with certain inalienable rights. Life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. We've never fully lived up to this sacred idea, but we've never walked away from it either. And I do not believe the American people will walk away from it now. In just a few months, the American people will choose the course of America's future. I made my choice. I've made my views known. I'd like to thank our great Vice President Kamala Harris. She's experienced, she's tough, she's capable. She's been an incredible partner to me and a leader for our country. Now the choice is up to you, the American people. When you make that choice, remember the words of Benjamin Franklin hanging on my wall here in the Oval Office, alongside the busts of Dr. King and Rosa Parks and Cesar Chavez. When Ben Franklin was asked, as he emerged from the convention going on, whether the founders had given America a monarchy or republic, Franklin's response was, a republic, if you can keep it. A republic, if you can keep it. Whether we keep our republic is now in your hands. My fellow Americans, it's been the privilege of my life to serve this nation for over 50 years. Nowhere else on earth could a kid with a stutter, from modest beginnings in Scranton, Pennsylvania, Claymont, Delaware, one day sit behind the resolute desk in the Oval Office as President of the United States. But here I am. That's what's so special about America. We're a nation of promise and possibilities, of dreamers and doers, of ordinary Americans doing extraordinary things. I've given my heart and my soul to our nation, like so many others. I've been blessed a million times in return with the love and support of the American people. I hope you have some idea how grateful I am to all of you. The great thing about America is here, kings and dictators do not rule, the people do. History is in your hands. The power is in your hands. The idea of America lies in your hands. You just have to keep faith. Keep the faith. And remember who we are. We're the United States of America. And there's simply nothing beyond our capacity when we do it together. Let's act together. Preserve our democracy. God bless you all. May God protect our troops.
President Joe Biden there addressing the nation from the Oval Office on ending his re-election bid. The president saying it became clear he needed to unite the party. From Bloomberg World Headquarters in New York, I'm Doug Krisner, joined by my colleague Brian Curtis from our studios in Hong Kong. In a moment, we'll be bringing into the conversation Jeannie Cianzino, who is a Bloomberg politics contributor and professor of political science at Iona University. Brian, the president said that he called out the Defense for Democracy, saying it's more important than any title. He draws strength and finds joy in working for the American people. But this sacred task of perfecting our union is not about me. It's about you, your family, your futures. It's about we, the people.
Yes, he did not really talk about Donald Trump, and he didn't really say all that much about Kamala Harris. A little mention. It was mainly about his legacy, and yes, I think that statesman role that we talked about earlier, I think he did play that up. The meaning of America is and what it stands for. For my own taste, I thought he was a little too whispery and a little too breathy in that. I wish he would have just come out stronger and just, spoken more aggressively about, I made the decision, and here's what comes next. But I think, for him to speak about what it means to be president and, his own role in contributing to the public over all these years was quite heartfelt.
Let's get to Jeannie Cianzino. Your reaction, Jeannie?
It was interesting to hear because we've been listening for the last 72 hours to Harris on the campaign trail with these huge, just big rallies where she's getting a lot of energy and it's very sort of moving. And then you contrast that with Joe Biden tonight and you're reminded why so many Democrats felt that he wasn't up to the task. And this was, he looks good. He's in the Oval Office. It's a solemn time, but it's still, to the earlier point, that raspy sort of voice and sort of low energy. That said, I too was surprised he didn't give us more insight, which I wish he would, into how and why he made this decision. And he didn't say much about Donald Trump at all, if any. I didn't hear Donald Trump's name, and he had a few words of support for Kamala Harris. I'm not sure if that's Donald Trump because Donald Trump's requesting equal time or not, but he clearly did not want to get too enmeshed in the campaign. That's going to be the next 100 days of our lives.
The part that came through pretty well, I think, is passing the torch to a new generation. That resonates pretty well. Get some new voices, and that the time is now. That was a part of the address, and I think a lot of people would embrace that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that he is responding to what he's hearing that Democrats and voters and Americans have been calling for. And in the last 72 hours, it's been clear that the hunger is there. And he is saying that for everything I accomplished, and he listed a lot of his accomplishments, that it is time to hand this over. And he is doing so at the behest of the voters. Although I would have liked to hear more as to the nature of that decision.
We were talking earlier, Jeannie, about the president's what he may offer in the way of assistance to Kamala Harris's campaign. Based on what you heard tonight, would you probably give guidance for Biden to do less on that front rather than more?
You know, I think he's going to go and try to help these down ballot races where it is helpful. It's not helpful everywhere, and I think he will offer support to Kamala Harris as needed. I don't think he is going to be out front in the lead. I think the kind of thing we saw yesterday when she was talking at the campaign headquarters and they expressed their adoration for each other, he on the phone and she in person, and he said, called her kid or something like that. I think that's the kind of support he is going to give. Obviously, he's already handed over the campaign apparatus, the money, and the operation, which is the most important support he can give. And of course, I think behind the scenes, he'll continue to offer a lot of support, but I don't think he's going to be up front because that has not been winning for Democrats to this point.
Jimmy, to your question and point that we didn't hear more about what the cause of, what sort of crystallized his decision for it. Do you think maybe it was former President Obama, Bill, and Hillary Clinton that weighed in? Because it seemed like right after that, the decision kind of came quickly.
Yeah, I guess it's the political scientist historian in me. That's what I'm most interested in. And we didn't get the inside scoop. Maybe he's planning on writing a book after he leaves, but it could very well have been Obama, and it could have been Clinton. He kept changing the goalposts, if you will. First it was God had to tell him to get out. Then it was the data, the sort of pull to what was going to force him out kept moving. And we never quite did get a good explanation, at least in my hearing of this, as to what moves the needle. So I am very curious to learn that at some point.
What about the influence of former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi? From things that I've been reading, that seemed to carry a lot of weight.
It did. And the fact that she shared data and then she called on his close advisor to explain the data, there seems to be some concern he wasn't getting the sort of hard truth he needed from a data perspective. And that does seem to have moved the needle. And I think it's important to remember she just stepped down herself not that long ago. And she is from his generation, and they've known each other for decades, and there's a lot of goodwill there. So I think that, like for all Democrats, when Nancy Pelosi speaks, they do take it seriously, and I'm sure Joe Biden, a man of the Senate he is, and she of the House, that was meaningful to him what she had to say.
Let me ask you a political question again, because the president obviously didn't come across quite as robust as perhaps some had hoped for. Do you think that the Republicans now will use that as a way to ask him to step down and not govern over the next 6 months? Or would they rather steer clear of that because it actually might improve the chances of Kamala Harris?
Yeah, if they were smart, I think they would steer clear of it. I've never seen that as a winning message, and it's interesting to me that was sort of one of the early things we heard when he announced he was stepping aside. We heard it from the speaker and some others. It seems to me it's still out there, but not quite as robust a message, and I think they're maybe learning that if they're going to win, they're going to really need to focus on the woman who is running, that is Kamala Harris. So I don't see that as a winning message, and if I was advising the president, I would tell him to completely ignore it, get up every day, and go and do his job. His argument, just watch me, that's what Republicans should be doing, and they should, if they want to win, not focus as much on him, but turn their attention on her.
Would you expect President Biden to introduce Kamala Harris at the Democratic convention next month?
I am so glad you asked that because that is what I've been betting with people about. I am saying I'm not putting a lot of money on it, but boy, would it be exciting for all of us who are going to be there. I don't know if he will, and I don't know if I would advise it, but I do think he should have a role in the convention one way or another. Hulk Hogan or some kind of wrestling hero like we saw with Donald Trump. So I think it's going to be completely different, but boy, it's going to be exciting if it was the president.
And Jeannie, just give us some of your insights on who you think might be the vice presidential pick and when we might learn that.
I think we're going to learn. Because she does need to shore up her bona fides in terms of the economy. And so anything she could do to move in that direction, I think would be very helpful. But at this point, it looks like Shapiro remains behind Shapiro. Although, again, I do think looking to somebody like Kelly in Arizona would be a really interesting play.
Yes, I think it would. Jeannie, thank you so much for making time to be with us tonight. Jeannie Arantano, Bloomberg Politics contributor. She's also a professor of political science at Iona University, joining us for special coverage of President Biden's address to the nation from the Oval Office on ending his re-election bid. This is Bloomberg. Market, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day on Bloomberg Radio, Bloomberg Television, and the Bloomberg Business app. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Hi, everybody. Good morning to you. I'm Brian Curtis in Hong Kong. We look at the markets. We do so all throughout the day on Bloomberg Radio. Asian equities have turned lower here this morning. We've seen a pretty stark statement being made. The Nikkei trading down 2.2%. That's a drop of 865 points. The S&P ASX 200 in Sydney is down about 8.7%. And boy, are we seeing some selling in Seoul as well. The Kospi is off 1.3%. SK Hynix, after its earnings, which looked pretty solid, the stock trading down 5.8%. I can give you just a few of the important elements of that. SK Hynix's quarterly revenue more than doubled. And it initially stoked some hopes that the boom in spending on AI hardware would persist in 2024. But we are seeing a lot of selling there. So it'll be interesting to watch TSMC later and just how things move throughout the region. We'll be getting more on, we'll get some more markets opening up in the next hour or so. At the moment, we've got a lot of strength in the Japanese currency. The yen is right now at 153.76 against the dollar. The Bloomberg Dollar Spot Index is pretty steady here this morning, but the yen with huge strength. The euro trading at $1.0838. The yield on the 10-year at 4.27%, and WTI crude $77.42. $73.43. I'm Brian Curtis in Hong Kong. 23 minutes past the hour, and let's get to Ed Baxter in San Francisco for headline news. Ed.
I'll take it from here, Brian. We'll get back to Ed momentarily here on Daybreak Asia as we get the Thursday morning edition underway following our special coverage of President Biden's address. I want to bring in Luke Stone now, portfolio manager at Winthrop Capital Management. Luke, let's talk about the price action today. Kind of a meltdown in some of these artificial intelligence names. Was this long overdue?
Yeah, I think... First off, thank you very much for having me. I think really the word of the day today was rotation. I think you heard that pretty much throughout every financial media outlet across the board. Obviously, a lot of market activity focused around the mega cap tech names, focused around the Magnificent Seven, and kind of more of a focus on the remaining 493 of the S&P 500 there. So when you look at specifically the AI manufacturing sleeve of the S&P 500, I mean, they took a huge hit. And I think it's really the market's way of saying, hey, it's great that you have these earnings projections, but you actually have to hit them. So again, the name of the day was rotation. I think we saw people start to take profits and prices fall precipitously.
One of the questions I put to guests yesterday was, are we entering into a return on investment. And it feels to me like the market really rammed home that point tonight.
Yeah, I think that's completely valid, and I think there's parallels when you look at some of very capex heavy business lines in the past. The first thing that comes to mind is Meta with their soiree to the metaverse about a year and a half ago, posting huge capital expenditure numbers, and the market really reacted negatively. So yes, I do think that huge capex into AI could pose a negative threat with some of these big names.
It's kind of interesting because then you get the news from IBM after the bell, and the company reported a big jump in bookings for its artificial intelligence business. Do we have to treat this more case by case than kind of broad theme of, let's say, artificial intelligence when we're trying to track the trajectory of where this technology may take us?
I think that's a valid point. You look at the largest names in AI, specifically in the chip space. You take your NVIDIAs, your TSMCs, so on and so forth. I mean, they had the real precipitous gains through the start of the year, while some of the domestic manufacturers, some what I would call legacy manufacturers, like your IBMs, really lagged a little bit. So I think you're seeing some catch-up that's taking place with the names like IBM, and starting to not close the gap, but gain some of the benefits of their chip manufacturing.
So better breadth in the market would be a great thing, I think. But we had a lot of factors really contributing today. It was not only that, it was not only what we talked about with the overcrowded, overbought AI mega cap tech sector, but also seasonality, valuations, a big part of it. And what I want to ask you about now is the beginnings of a growth scare creeping in. You had those Dudley comments. We had some other key economists saying the Fed has got to get moving here soon. This has changed pretty quickly, but do you buy the growth scare? Personally, I don't that much.
Yeah, it's really hard to cast a straight and narrow thought process behind it. I think we do start to see a macroeconomic environment that is starting to show some cracks. I think you specifically see it within the labor market. You're seeing unemployment start to tick upward, and job growth is occurring in some of the lower skill and part-time jobs. It's leading to some potential issues. I don't necessarily think that we're going to fall off a cliff per se, and I think that's some of the concerns when you see market participants begging for a rate cut. I think market expectations right now peg the first rate cut to take place in September. So I don't necessarily see us falling off the cliff, but I think we're starting to see an economic market that's showing cracks.
And one of the reasons perhaps that we saw that big drop in yield at the shorter end of the curve, I think the 2-year was down 6 basis points in New York. We're down another 1+ basis point in the Tokyo session here. Is it still your expectations that the Fed does 2 25 basis point rate cuts and nothing more this year?
So we've seen that the market's really pegging that activity kind of as 2 cuts by the end of the year, and then a coin flip in the December meeting. I think if we had to make a bet, it would be on the under side there. I just don't see unemployment ticking drastically upward for us to justify 75 basis points. So I think yes, I think a 50 basis point rise is kind of a fair, rather. I think that's probably more of a fair assessment of the market.
If we do see some cracks in growth, do you think that will manifest pretty heavily in some areas of real estate and even commercial real estate?
Yeah, I think we've started to see some of the cracks take place within commercial real estate. Yesterday we had the Blackstone Mortgage Trust, their huge public REIT, it's a global public REIT, had some significant charge-off issues, taking specific reserves on specific properties, and announced a dividend cut, which the dividend cut was nearly a cut of 33%, which led to the REIT itself falling 10%. So I do see some potential cracks that can take place within the commercial real estate market. Now that said, there are pockets where there are value. I think every time I've come on here, we've talked data centers. They continue to post strength, but as we start to see AI maybe taking a slower track, who knows what can happen there.
We just heard from President Biden at the top of the hour. Obviously, the elephant in the room is the election. Today, former Treasury Secretary Larry Summers was saying Republicans are setting the U.S. up for what he termed a Liz Truss moment. That basically being that policies the GOP is supporting would widen